And then we're going to broadcast our webinar. All right, so we got our webinar going. Hi, everyone who's checking in. This is Maggie Ostara. I'm delighted to welcome you here to our Wednesday webinars. And this is a series, I'm not even sure how long it's been going on. 2.5 months, 3 months, something like that. You know, it's been going on for a while. And I'm delighted that you're here. And right now have the second in a series of 5 webinars that are talking about the superpowers based on the types. And so today we're going to be talking about manifesting generators. So as we get started, I want to invite you who are here on Zoom, hi, everybody who's coming here on Zoom, to go ahead and, see, where's my chat? Yeah, go ahead and open up your chat. Make sure that you're sending messages to all panelists and attendees so that everyone else can see what you're writing and not just me. And I just invite you to put in your name, where you're coming in from. I always like to see where people are coming in from. We've had a pretty national and international audience in the past. And so I would love to hear from you and see where you're, see where you're coming in from. And then let us know what your human design type is. I found it fascinating that last week when we did the pure generator webinar, it was like all generators. And one of the things that I said to people was to please, I think it's great if you will attend the webinars that are about types that are different than your own, because there are going to be people in your life who are going to be the other types. And so it's really great to know things about the types that are different than yourself. It is wonderful to know about ourselves. And, hey, generators, pure generators, manifesting generators, we like to know about ourselves as part of our characteristic. But it's also good for us to know about other people, other people in our lives. Like, I'm a pure generator, but I have a lot of manifesting generators in my life. I have some manifestors and some projectors. I don't have reflectors who are really close in, but I have done readings for reflectors. So I like to know about everybody because we live in the world with each other. And one of the beautiful things that human design helps us understand is actually how interdependent we are, and how our energies are constantly picking up from each other, and we're amplifying them. And so we're getting to experience lots of different energies all the time, depending on who we're around and what their types are, what their definition is. And so there's a lot that we can gain in our lives by understanding about the human design of the people, particularly that we're around on a regular basis, whether that's family members or partners, kids, co-workers, but also friends, and people who might be farther out from your intimate, close-in group, who might be farther out. They may be clients, they may be students of yours, they may be coworkers who aren't people you're connecting with every day. But it's hugely beneficial. So I just encourage you to check out all of the different types and their superpowers. And I do talk a little bit about the downside of those superpowers, because one of the things that human design really shows us is the shadow side of everything. If you're familiar with the teachings of Abraham, one of the things that Abraham Hicks says is that every attribute has a positive. The way they would describe it is a positive and negative. I would say there's a more awakened aspect, which is what the superpowers are, and there's also a shadow aspect. But one of the really cool things about human design is it shows us how to identify the shadow aspects and then transform them into the superpowers. And this is true throughout your whole chart. And if you think about everything that's in your chart, it's a lot of elements. Okay, I am seeing from Paul, who's here from Montreal, and he's a manifesting generator. And from Lorena, who's from Seattle, she's a manifesting generator. And Mary Wilson, who's also a manifesting generator, who's here from Houston. Okay, there are more of you who are here on the line. Zoom participants, please go ahead, put your name in say where you're coming in from and what your human design type is. Mary Mayer, hi Mary. Mary is on via Facebook Live. Hi Mary, she is a generator, and Trudy is a pure generator, and Trudy's in Canada. Okay, and Mary Mayer is in Richmond, Virginia. All right, same thing with Facebook Live. There are more of you who are watching that are sharing, so please do that. It really helps us to have this sense of the people who are online. And just so everybody knows, the way that I run these, if you haven't been on before, because some of you are on for the first time, I don't necessarily recognize your name. And so I want to let you know that usually what I do is I teach for about 30 minutes. So until about 12:30, 12:40, it's usually about 12:40. And then we have a solid 20 minutes. Sometimes we go over the hour too, if there's really, an active conversation going on at that time, or if I talk for a long time, which sometimes I do. I have an open throat and I get going, and I can say a lot. But in any event, so I invite you to be writing down your questions, your comments, or to be popping them into Facebook or into the chat. That's totally fine. It's not like we have hundreds of people and they'll get all lost in there. We're a manageable size so that we can, I can find your comments and your questions in there. So please do that. From my point of view, it really, I've been a teacher for over 3 decades now. And one of the things I know is that if you're actively engaged, then you're much more likely to absorb what is being shared and also to remember it, to retain it, and to be able to integrate it. So my invitation to you is to turn off your notifications, turn off your phone. Don't be cruising around on different parts of Facebook while you're here, or writing emails or whatever you might be doing. Just really be here, pay attention, take notes. If you're a manifesting generator, as I see a bunch of you are, you do like to multitask, so you can take notes. You can draw pictures of what you're learning. Excuse me. You can, just write down content that you're learning, but you can also be like, oh, I never thought of that before. This is how this impacts me. Or you can be writing a question like, oh, I didn't quite understand that. Or I wonder how this relates to this other thing, how this relates to this person in my life, or how this relates to myself. Let's say I'm a projector, this thing about a manifesting generator. How does this relate to me as a projector? So all those are the types of things that you can be calling on yourself so that you can be actively engaged in your learning process. Otherwise, if it's really passive, you're probably not going to absorb it, you're not going to retain it, and you're not going to use it later on. And I really want that for you, because this is not just an exercise for me, obviously, it's something for you. And I say the same thing to those of you who are watching the replay later. I've been seeing that lots of you have been watching the replay later, which is fine. I totally understand. But I invite you to do the same kind of thing. And if you're watching on Facebook, which is basically where the replays are available, please do write in the comments as you're watching the replay, because you can do that. You can still write in the comments, and I go back and I look at them later. And I like to hear what's going on for you. One of the things that I will ask you for at the end, so I ask you to pay attention to this now, is what are your top 2 takeaways? Like, what did you learn? What was of value for you today? And for you to be able to share those in the chat or in the comments on Facebook at the end, towards the end of our time together. And if you need to leave early, I would appreciate it if you'd pop that in before you go. Again, this is one of the ways that you can increase your ability to absorb and retain and then implement the information, is as if you take the next step and go, oh, what was it I really got out of that? So that, unfortunately, so much in our world today really programs us to be pretty passive, just watching videos or watching TV, or even watching Facebook Lives or whatever. It's like we're not necessarily really engaging with our learning. And this isn't like one of the courses that I teach where I always give you things to fill in and assignments that help you to do that. This is, it's part of the weekly webinars, the Wednesday webinars. And so you need to take those steps yourself. All right, good. So let's all take a breath and a stretch. I don't know why Zoom changes my lighting when I do that, but it does. There we go. See, now it's going to change again. So funny. All right, I'm going to take a little sip. Okay, and we've got Katjun, who is here from Montclair and is a pure generator, and Laura, who's here from Alberta, Canada. I love having Canadians. And she's a manifesting generator. Or is that's not Laura. It's Launa or Luna, maybe just Luna. And Mary, who is from DC, is a manifesting generator. All right, and we've got Paula, who's a generator from Houston. All right. Okay, well, let's get started with our slides today. All right, there we go. So today we are talking about the manifesting generator and the manifesting generator's superpowers. Now, before we move on to that, I have just a couple of announcements. I want to remind everyone, whether you're here on Facebook or whether you're here on Zoom, that replays are available of all of the Wednesday webinars that I've done inside of the Sovereignty by Design Facebook group. So if you are not a member of that group, just go to Facebook and then search for Sovereignty by Design group. I now have a business page also, but I haven't really built it yet, so there's not much on there. But if you put in group, it'll show up, and just ask to join, and we will approve you, and you'll be able to come on in. Once you're in there, on the left-hand side, you'll see a menu, and there's a videos tab. So you just click on there, and you'll see all the videos in there. Okay, so that's where you find the replays. I want to let you know the upcoming dates for the Wednesday webinar. There will be no webinar next Wednesday. I'm going to be relaxing at the hot springs. So I'm going to take some time off next week. And but then the following Wednesday, we're going to talk about projector superpowers. August 12th is manifestor superpowers, and August 19th is reflector superpowers. Then on August 26th, that we're going to inaugurate the Sovereign Sister Salons, and those will be streaming from the Sovereignty by Design business page. Okay, you can watch for your email for that, and I will also pop it into our group so you can see that. And it will again be streamed via Facebook Live, but it'll be on the business page instead of here in the group, and then it'll also be on Zoom. Okay, so make sure that I have your email address if you've been connecting with us via Facebook and you didn't give me your email address when you came into the group. Some of you didn't. Make sure I have that so I can be keeping you apprised of changes that are going to be going on. And then every other week, I'll still be doing a webinar, and I haven't decided if I'm going to do it on the business page or inside the Facebook group. But the first two interviews for the Sovereign Sister Salons will be from very talented and skilled health professionals speaking about health sovereignty in their different areas of expertise. So stay tuned for more information having to do with those interviews. And then the Sovereign Sister Salons will be going on every other week, and then there'll be a webinar every other week. Okay. All right, so let's remember that the human design system is quite complex. And I always love to show the mandala because some of you don't have the mandala. If you're interested in this, I did post it as a photo a while back, but if you just go to photos, you'll be able to find it and you can download it if you want one of your own. Whenever I do a foundational reading for people, I give them their own mandala. I give them the body graph that you're familiar with. I give them their circuit board so that they know what their circuitry is. And then I give them the human design mandala. And these are really valuable. I actually have mine on my altar and I just gaze at it. And my experience is that it really transmits to you the same way if you ever get your astrology chart, your natal chart. That chart will also transmit to you. This is a nonverbal non-logical, non-rational experience. It's very much about plugging into super consciousness and being able to receive the assignment, in a sense, and the map that you received that has to do with your birth and with human design 88 days prior to your birth. Those two things are what create the human design chart. And I just want to remind you, if you already know, or let you know, that there are over 100 archetypes in the human design chart. There are 9 centers, there's 36 channels, there's 64 gates. In addition to that, there's profiles, and you can see, and then it has to do with where the planets are, in which gate, when you were born in 88 days prior. So there's really a lot of information in your human design chart. So as we are dialing into the types in this series right now, I just want to remind you that this is just one aspect. It's a vital, super important aspect. And honestly, if all you learned was your type and your superpowers, what your strategy is, which is one of your superpowers, and your authority, which is also one of your superpowers, if that's all you learned, you would learn an awful lot, and it would transform your life, would be my guess. And there's also a lot more to learn if that's something that interests you. And I really encourage everyone to get a foundational human design reading, whether it's with me or with someone else. Of course, I would love it to be with me, because I would love to connect with you and the people in my tribe. But wherever you get it, I just really invite you to do that, because you can learn so much about yourself. And like I said, my emphasis when I do readings, and there's 2 things that I just want to mention. One is always about your superpowers. Okay. I always want you to get that there are attributes that you have that human design illuminates. Human design doesn't give it to you. Human design illuminates these attributes that you have, that when you understand them as superpowers, when you know that awakened aspect, that you can, and if you've been embodying the shadow aspect, or if you've just been suppressing the whole thing, which people do with different aspects of their chart, I have discovered after doing hundreds of readings at this point, that you can really bring this to the forefront of your life, and it can be a huge benefit for you, and you can move from that shadow aspect into the superpower aspect. And so we're doing that with type here in this series. Okay, so a few of these, if you were here for, the generator webinar last week, a little bit of this will be review, because there are certain things that are common to pure generators and manifesting generators. So I'm going to briefly go over those, and then we're going to dive into things that are specific for manifesting generators. Okay. So all generators, whether they're pure or manifesting, have their sacral center defined. So this red square here is what we call the sacral center. Okay. So everybody who is a generator, pure or manifesting, has this colored in. If you have it colored in, you're either a pure generator or a manifesting generator. There are no exceptions. Okay. And the sacral center is the most powerful engine, or the most powerful motor in the chart. It's the center for life force energy. It's extremely powerful. It gives us generators a huge amount of energy to be the builders of the world, because we are the builders. We are the ones who have that energy to to build houses. For me, it's build online courses, teach lots of people, build gardens, make furniture, do big work in the world, right? It really gives us the energy to do that. And it's virtually inexhaustible, provided that you're following your strategy, you're using your authority, and you're taking care of yourself. Now, I have done other webinars on strategy for all the types and on authority for all the types. Okay, so I encourage you, if you have an interest in that and more questions about that, to go and look at those webinars, because I'm not going to go into deep detail about them here today. I will mention it to some degree, because your strategy and your authority are definitely superpowers for you. And I did talk about both of these in relation to the generator last week. So I will have talked about it more then. So I encourage you to go check that out also. But I want to emphasize here, and this is true for manifesting generators as well as for generators, which is that you can burn yourself out. I have burned myself out several times by not, well, I didn't know my strategy and I didn't know my authority. So I wasn't operating like a generator. I was operating like a manifester. And it was good for accomplishment for a while, but then I got really, really fried, and I had to step away from a couple of different businesses that I had created. One of which was, really big, like a multiple six-figure, sometimes a seven-figure business, because I was doing it like I was a manifester. And I know now that a manifester wouldn't have been able to do it the way I was doing it because they don't have the sacral energy. So it's interesting to start to understand how we need each other as as different human design types, because a manifester wouldn't have been able to build what I built without a generator, and I would have done great with a manifester, or if I'd known my strategy and my authority and followed it. Okay, so let me just see if there's anything I want to say about that. No, I don't think so. Let's talk for a minute about the motors or the engines in the chart, okay? Because it's important to understand these in order to understand the manifesting generator as opposed to the pure generator. So pure generators have this red square defined, okay? Pure generators can have all of them defined, just like a manifesting generator can have them all defined, okay? That's not the key component. But let's just talk about these for a second. So the motors or the engines are where the fuel is in the chart, or the energy is in the chart. Like I said, the sacral is the most powerful one, and it is virtually inexhaustible if you are taking care of yourself. You're resting when you need to, you're paying attention to. If your sacral authority is going, I don't have energy for that, not pushing yourself to do it anyway, which is what I used to do. If you're not overusing your willpower, which you can do, especially if you have your will center defined, not that many of us do, but some of us do. And really knowing, like, if it's the right time to do something, which is what your authority will help you know. If it is yours to do, if it's even something you have energy for now, or maybe never. Maybe you have a good idea, or you think it's a good idea, but it's really not something that your inner being is going to say yes to. And this is one of the ways that you can really burn yourself out, however many engines that you have. So let me just name them all. So here's the sacral center. Here's the will center, which is half of what used to be the heart chakra. The other half is the G center. Here's the emotional solar plexus. It's the emotional center, which is not so much the center that contains all the emotions, because there's emotions in other parts of the chart. Like, for example, there's love in the heart, right? There's fear in the spleen. So there is what we might think of as emotional energy in lots of different parts of the chart, and different channels and different gates. But what it is when you have this defined, it means you're going to have an emotional wave. And so you're going to be having emotions present more or less all the time in some form. Whereas if you have it open, as I do, you may not. There may be times when you're pretty neutral emotionally. And so it's one of the things that people need to come to understand if they have this defined. Then we have the root, and the root pulses on and off and on and off. And so we need to pay attention to, is our root on? Do we have the energy now? If the root is off and you're like, wow, I had so much energy for this yesterday, and today I just really don't. If any of you experience that, I think I had somebody comment on this at another time. It may be that your root is off. It may be that your will center needs to replenish itself because you've been using your willpower to do something. Or it could just be that it is time for you to rest. And we're not very well trained in how to rest here in our culture. I realized when I learned human design that I really didn't know how to rest. I knew how to collapse, work until I collapsed. Um, and I knew how to sleep, kind of, but I didn't really know how to rest. And going to the hot springs is one of the ways that I rest. Okay, so for manifesting generators, so manifesting energy is when a motor gets to the throat, or when it's the energy is coming from a motor. Okay, one of these four motors, all right? That is when you have manifesting energy. You'll probably hear a lot when you are reading a book, or if you're taking a class, and especially if you're getting a reading, that you may have projected energy, okay? Or it might even be generated energy, which means it's coming off the sacral, okay? But it's only manifesting energy that is about manifesting and is about direct expression. Okay. Every other type of energy, whether it's projected or whether it's generated, needs to be what we call called out or recognized in order to be effective. And the energy of the sacral is responsive by nature. That's why we say that the strategy of generators is to respond. It's to respond. It's to be paying attention to what's going on in our outer reality and then respond to what comes into our purview. Okay. And so because it's generated energy that works best in response. If we try to make things happen, if we try to initiate too much with generated energy, we tend to either exhaust ourselves or do things at the wrong time, or meet resistance or annoy people. um, and so you want to be looking for that. If you're a manifesting generator, you still need to be looking for that, even though you have manifesting energy, because you're primarily a generator, not a manifester. Okay, but this can be tricky for manifesting generators because they do have manifesting energy. So what is this manifesting energy? It means that there is a line between the sacral all the way up to the throat. Okay, this is the 3420, which is known as the manifesting generator channel. Doesn't have to be this to be a manifesting generator, but it's known as that. It's also known as the channel of charisma. It's the fastest, most powerful channel in the chart. And just remember, everybody has the whole chart. So when you're around somebody who has this energy, you'll be experiencing it also, and you'll feel it and you'll get to amplify it. It's very, very fast. Oops. It's a very, very fast energy. And so it's great for accomplishment in a lot of ways. If you have that 3420, that's definitely a superpower for you as a manifesting generator. I'm just going to get this back in its box here. Okay. But there are also some downsides to it. I'll come back to that in a minute. Okay, but there's lots of ways that you can get a motor to the throat. So this is one, right? But this energy could go up through the 34 into the 10 into the G center and then up through any one of these channels. Okay, do you see that? Or it could come up from any of these channels. I just highlighted one because otherwise it's too many. You'll lose focus. But any one of these up through the G into the throat. Okay. It could come directly from the will center into the throat. It could come directly from the emotional solar plexus up into the throat, or it could come from the root through any of these three channels, through any of these two channels, up through the spleen and into the throat. Okay, so the closer the motor is to the throat, the more powerful the energy will be. So if like the root is the weakest of the motors, okay, and it has to go through the spleen in order to get up to the throat. So that's a long way to get energy from the root up to the throat, right? And it has to go through another center, okay? It's going to pick up some intuition. and potentially some instinctual fear along the way as it's going up there. So you want to check that out for yourself if that's how your motor gets to the throat. If it's going up through the G, again, it's going to weaken the sacral energy a little bit, but it's also going to pick up love energy and direction as it's going. Whereas with the will center, it's going to go directly to the throat, and the emotional solar plexus is going to go directly to the throat. If you have your emotional solar plexus to the throat, that means that you probably, and it could be the other channel here too, you may find it easy to express your emotions, okay? And then here with the willpower, this means you can have really strong willpower, and it can mean that you have a strong sense of your own value, and you may have a good relationship with money. Now, I have seen it be the opposite a fair number of times for people. So I know theoretically, if you have that will center defined, you're going to have a good relationship with money and own your value. But I've seen it be different than that plenty of times. So the point here is all of these motors have manifesting energy that when it goes to the throat is the center for expression and manifestation. So it's going to enable you to have strong ability to express yourself and also to create in the world. But because you're a generator, your main authority is still going to be your sacral, okay? And it's still responsive. So a manifesting generator is most powerful when they are able to be patient, to be able to pay attention to what's going on in the outer reality, to be able to slow down enough to imagine and visualize the direction that they want to take. So they get an inspiration or a great idea and they're like, oh, I want to go do that. If they can slow down enough and actually visualize it and pay attention to what's showing up in their outer reality, and when they get something to respond to, so, and they ask their sacral, ask their authority, is this the right time? Oh, oh, is this the thing? You know, this email that I got, is that a yes to this idea? Oh, then you move forward with it. And then they can act like manifestors with a lot of power because they have gotten the yes, right? They've gotten that yes. But you need to be able to wait. I've done readings for and taught classes with many manifesting generators who have shared with me that this is a challenge for them because the inner, especially if they have the 3420, which is a huge superpower when you manage the energy and you know how to channel it. It's kind of like a bronking, a bucking bronco, right? It's kind of like that energy. It's like it's like volcanic energy. It can be, right? So you want to make sure that you are handling it and it's not handling you. Right? Because when it handles you, what it looks like is you get an idea and you go do it before you even think about it. And then later you go, gosh, I don't think this was the right time to do that. Or, I'm not sure that was such a good idea for me to do that. Right? And then they have to kind of backpedal or let something go. So if you are a manifesting generator or you have one in your life, just think about that if there's a time for when that's true. And when you learn, oh, wow, this is how I need to handle this energy. When something comes up and I want to act on it, all I need to do is settle a little bit and develop my patience and my ability to imagine, okay, how will this actually go? And then, of course, use your authority, right? Ask your sacral, is this a or a and then see what you have to respond to in your outer reality. Okay. All right. So let's look at manifesting generator superpowers. So over here on the left are the ones that I mentioned for generators last week. Okay. The inner direction that you get from your authority, your sacral. Same with the guided by spirit is coming from that sacral authority. We are all of us are the builders of the world. We are designed for mastery. Just like generators, manifesting generators are designed to really learn through what's traditionally called a stair-step way of learning. Um, and this is one of the places that's interesting for manifesting generators. This has to do with the skipping steps that are over here on the right, is sometimes manifesting generators where the generator will hit the plateau, right? The manifesting generator will just jump right over it onto the next thing. And sometimes that's incredible, and they get things done really fast. They let go of extraneous things that didn't really need to be done, and they create shortcuts that we all benefit from. At other times, they skip steps that actually need to be done, and they have to go back and do them. Or sometimes they have to, kind of tear apart things that they did and go back and rebuild. So it's a mixed blessing, right? It's totally a superpower. But the thing is that for a manifesting generator, again, before you skip the step, take a moment, be patient, ground yourself, imagine what it would be like to skip that step and go, is that really the best? Ask your sacral, your inner direction, just guided by spirit. Is this the right thing to do, right? Is it the right time to do it, right? Is there something in my outer reality that can confirm this for me or not? Before you go ahead and skip the step. Now, that's not really in the nature of manifesting generators because they are fast. They tend to be really, really fast, and they tend to be super productive. But I can tell you, I did some consulting with a couple that were a manifesting generator couple. They both had the 3420. And I was doing business consulting with them, and I was helping them to build an online component, really a whole new online business from what had been an in-person business. And it was very hard. They were not very coachable. It was very hard to direct them because they were in the habit of getting an idea and acting on the idea immediately. And they were in the habit of believing that they had all the right ideas. And that if they got an idea, it was the right idea. And so it was hard to work with them. I mean, we did okay. I did help them learn a few things. But my experience is that they weren't willing to just kind of ground and become a little more responsive rather than taking a lot of initiative. And I think it really undercut their ability to be more successful. So I just want you to think about that if you're a manifesting generator, if that has been true for you in your life, and what you might do about that if that's the case. Manifesting generators in particular, but really anybody with the gate 34, which is known as the busy gate or the gate of power in the human design chart, is designed for multitasking. Like, I'm not a manifesting generator, but I do have the 34, and I am definitely designed for multitasking. I'm definitely designed to have multiple projects going on at the same time. I usually have at least 3 or 4 happening at the same time, just like I'm reading 3 books at the same time. So for some people, multitasking is really not great for them. It throws them off a lot. They get very scattered. It can happen for manifesting generators if they are not doing the right work, okay? And they can just be scattering themselves because they have all this fast action. And they're trying to skip steps, and they're multitasking, and they're not really on purpose. But when you're on purpose and you're doing the right work, and you're really holding on to that energy, it can be such a huge superpower to be able to do that kind of multitasking, because the manifesting generator has this huge capacity for work. Like I said, we're the builders of the world, the generators, and the manifesting generators even more so. Like some of the manifesting, I mean, I'm highly productive. Ask anybody who knows me well, they're like, wow, I can't believe how much you produce. And I look at some other manifesting generators and I feel like I'm, pale in comparison to their manifesting ability. It's pretty amazing. So they have a huge capacity for that. And this is all when you're able to grab a hold of that amount of power that you have, and to be able to just incubate it for long enough to ask questions and to decide if this is really the right time for you to be taking these actions. I'm just checking the time we have. Okay, got to move on. All right, so what are your most vital questions as a manifesting generator? Am I focusing on the right actions? Okay, that's absolutely critical. And the reason for that is it's possible for manifesting generators to be busy, 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 but not doing the right stuff. And especially if you're multitasking and you're not really paying attention and asking yourself the question and responding, you can be doing not the right actions for you, or not in the right order, or not at the right time. So you want to ask that. One way to tune in and find out is, are you angry and frustrated, or engaged and satisfied? Because the manifesting generator who is not on purpose, or not doing the right work, or not doing enough of the right work, can be angry and frustrated. If you're feeling really engaged and really satisfied, chances are you're on purpose, you're doing the right work, you're doing enough work, and you're handling your energy well. So you just want to look for that, because all of the human design types have what we call emotional themes. And so these are for the manifesting generator. One thing is are you doing enough work, or doing enough activity? And when I say work, I don't necessarily mean your job. It could be your business, but it could also just be work in your life, like things that you're really engaged in, that are utilizing your energy, and are using your, using your abilities, using that incredible power that you have. Because if you're not, you could get depressed, you could get sick, you could be really annoying to yourself and others, because you're not taking a hold of that energy and really sending it in the right direction. When you do, you're pretty much unstoppable. You can ask yourself, are you being patient? Okay, because one of the ways that manifesting generators can really screw themselves up is by not being patient enough, right? Taking lots of fast action without checking it out first, and not using their strategy and their authority. And then where do you go for guidance? Okay, so because manifesting generators, just like generators, need to go to their sacral authority for their guidance. Now, if you're emotionally defined, and I've said this, I think, in almost every webinar, it simply means you need to take account of your emotional wave. Your sacral is still your authority, okay? You're not going to your emotional solar plexus for your yes, no answers, or to give you guidance, okay? You're taking account of your emotional wave, but that's not where you're going for guidance. Okay, so you want to ask yourself that. Depending on your circuitry, there's lots of other things in the human design chart. Like, for example, I have a lot of the knowing circuit, so I go to my knowing circuit for guidance, but that's beyond the scope of what we can talk about here. That's the kind of thing that I can support you with in a reading, if you decide you want to do that. Speaking of which, I have a brand new website, which I invite you to go check out. There is information there about readings and relationship readings and courses that I have, one of which is going to be becoming available again very soon, in the next week or two, called Activate Your Superpowers. And that's covering all of the key aspects of human design. It's a great introduction focused on superpowers, and you can find the pages there. It's not all fully updated, but it will be soon. But I invite you to go check it out. Let me know what you think. I love it. I think it's beautiful. I think it's got a ton of information, and I would love for you to check it out. All right, sovereigntybydesign.com. It's just like the name of our group. Okay, I'm going to stop our share here, and I'm going to invite you to put your comments and your questions and your ahas into the chat and into the comments over here on Facebook. All right, and so if you are if you're going to go soon, will you please just put in either the comments or in the chat what you have gotten out of what I talked about today? All right, sounds so good. All right, and I would love to hear from all of you. I think it's really wonderful and important for all of you to participate. I'm going to take a sip of water. I've been talking a long time. Okay, Lana, like sauna. Thank you, Lana. If I forget next time you're here, please remind me, okay? I do try to remember. I like to get people's names right. Okay, Lana like Sana. Okay, perfect. Dorothy, hi Dorothy. Oh, good to hear from you. Just letting you know that most teaching videos I have watched leave information to the end after the video has shown. For someone who lacks time and patience like me, I want to get right to the point of what you say you're going to talk about. Okay, Dorothy, I'm not quite sure what you're referring to. If you're talking about the updates that I was sharing, maybe that's what you were talking about. I'm not sure. Um, I actually like to share them at the beginning because I want to make sure that people get them. And patience is a virtue, as I'm sure you know. Okay. All right. All right, people. Please let me know what's on your minds here. You're being very quiet today. I'm not sure why. Mary says, where is the 3420? Let's see here. Let me just go back to this slide. Mary, the 3420 is right here. Comes off the sacral. Here's the sacral. And it goes up to the throat. Here's the 20. Okay. So it goes directly from the sacral to the throat. It's the only channel that goes directly from the sacral to the throat. And that's why it's the most powerful channel, because it goes from the most powerful center or motor up directly up to the throat. Okay. What do you recommend during this weird pandemic? I find my productivity is minimal. You know, Mary, could you share a little bit more about that? My productivity has been off the charts during the pandemic. Okay. Like off the charts. I can't even tell you. Like I've been getting so much done. So my guess is that if you're finding your productivity is minimal, that you distracted and getting depressed. Yeah. Well, so here's the thing. Are you doing the right work? Do you have the right work to do? That's number one for any generator. If you're distracted, is are you doing the right work? Because you might not be doing the right work. If you are doing the right work, then what's going on in your mindset that is getting in the way of you being connected to your work? So I can say for me, I am not plugging in to the mainstream media and all of the fear mongering that is going on in the mainstream media, or what's going on Facebook or anywhere else. I am sheltering in place for the most part. I have a teenager with a chronic illness, and I'm protecting myself and my family. I'm doing what I need to do in order to do that. And then inside of that, I have complete freedom as to how I want to use my time and how I engage myself. So I have really good boundaries with what is going on outside. And I don't allow that to really be impacting me really heavily. So you're saying your design business came to a standstill, the classes I feel called to teach, but keep putting it off. Feeling very isolated, you live alone. Well, it's interesting about your design business, Mary. I don't know what kind of design business you have, but more people than ever are building online, and they need design for that. So it may be that you would need to pivot in order to fulfill a different need that is alive right now during the pandemic. I don't know if you were doing stuff for brick and mortar businesses, that might not work so well, right? But if you were able to pivot to fulfill the needs of people who are building online, like there are all kinds of people who had in-person businesses who are now building online, and they need design services. So you may need to be looking, that's just an example. And then if you know, you know what I would do, Mary, is I would sit down and have a heart-to-heart conversation with yourself. You could do it in your journal. You could do it at your altar. You could do it on a walk through nature. And you just have a heart-to-heart conversation with yourself and say, sweetheart, what is going on? Like, what is really going on? What's happening inside that I don't feel like I can engage with life with the way that I usually do. And it could be that you have some level of grief about what's occurring in the world. That would be understandable. It could be that you have some worry about where things are going. That would be understandable. It could be that you have some fear about people that you love getting sick and being very sick or even dying. That would be understandable. Those are all things that are understandable. At the same time, you don't want them to control your life, right? You want to process your grief. You want to be able to work with your fear. You don't want it to control you. You don't want to be giving a lot of energy to worry, because worry is just living in the future about something that hasn't happened already. So you want to pull yourself back into present time, be here now, right? And grief is always about what happened in the past, right? So then you'd be either in the past or in the future, right? And fear is also usually projecting something from the past into the future. So you want to take the precautions that you need to in order for you to feel safe in your family, or for you in your home. But then inside of that, you want to allow yourself to release those negative energies and to be able to process those emotions in some way so that you can be more free. But have that heart-to-heart conversation with yourself. If you are, I don't know if you've gotten this from me or not, Mary, but I'll just put it in here. I have a free audio e-course on clarity breathwork that I encourage you to go get and breathe with any of those things that are in your way. I also put Wim Hof in there. He has a wonderful breathing practice you can find on YouTube. I think breath is the breath and movement are the two most effective ways to move things like fear, worry, grief, so that you can be more clear. Because the more contracted you get, the less movement you have, the less breathing you do, the worse you're going to feel. The more all of that stagnant energy is going to build. It's going to be harder and harder for you to function. I hope that's helpful, Mary. Let me know in the comments. Okay, some more comments here. Okay. Katrine says, I have the 34, but not the 20. Still an incredible amount of energy comes through. And sometimes I can feel fried, especially the day after a huge expansive energy. It's something I'm just becoming aware of. Yeah, so it's good that you're becoming aware of it. And one of the things that you want to do, and I've really had to learn how to do this because I have the 34, not the 20 also, is when does excitement turn into obsession? Because I know now there's a point at which I can start to move into obsession. And that if I go there, I get tired and I'm fried the next day. If I notice it and I'm going, uh-oh, I'm getting obsessive. I really want to finish this or whatever, and I go, okay, it's enough for today. It's enough for today. Or I just need to take a break and then I'll see later on. Most of the time, if I just take a break, and then I go for a walk, or I make dinner, or I go do my breath practice or whatever it is, most of the time I go, no, I'm actually done for the day. I don't need to go back and work anymore, but sometimes I kind of have to fool myself because I'm like so involved in what I'm in, and I have to kind of break that because there's a little bit of a trance that can come in when you're really like in the flow. Or if you're just really in it and you want to do it, then just know you're gonna be tired the next day. And that's not a horrible thing, as long as you don't do it habitually. Because if you do it habitually, you'll get to burnout. Okay. Diane says, I'm the same as Mary Wilson. I'm not listening to news, tried webinars, less than 5 attended and no takers on my program or schedule a strategy session. Okay, well, so Diane, it sounds like I think what I'm hearing you say is that maybe you try to start offering some of what your work via webinars. Here's the thing. you know, when I first started doing things, I had things where people, 5 people, I had things where nobody showed up. Okay. And starting to do things, if you're just learning how to do webinars, have you taken a class in how to do that? Like there are strategies for how to do that. Plus what it might be best for you, if you don't have a community already, what you might just be wanting to do is to build your list, is to build your audience, and to be doing that through providing lots of free content, like doing Facebook Lives and then inviting people to get something free from you rather than pitching a paid program. I don't have any idea what the size of your list is. Maybe you could let me know what size your audience is. But if you have a small little audience and you've never done webinars before, like there's really no reason that you should do well with that initially. Like you have to get used to realizing you're doing something new, and it's going to take you a little while to learn how to do it. Don't be hard on yourself. Don't use it as a reason to say, oh, I shouldn't do that, or I shouldn't learn it, or nobody wants what I have to offer. And like, don't go down. That's what one, a friend of mine says, going to a bad part of town. That's going to a really bad part of town where there's no street lights and the roads are all beaten up, and you know, you don't want to go there. Okay. So let me know, Diane, if you're still on, kind of a little bit more about your situation. Let's see, we're almost out of time. Okay. So Mary Trujillo says, I love to be by myself doing what inspires me. When I get engaged with people, I feel so annoying and depleted energetically. Inspire me. I don't know what that means, Mary. Inspire me. Yeah. You know, Mary, I would have to take a look at your chart to see if there's something in your human design that might be about that. Like if you have a lot of openness and you're not really sure how to work with your openness, that could lead you to feeling to getting depleted energetically. I'm not really sure. You know what, you guys, most of you are writing just to panelists and not to panelists and attendees, so not everybody is seeing what you're saying. So Mary Trujillo, if you have, when you say inspire me, can you just help me know what you mean by that? Thank you, Paul. Could you just share anything that in particular that you got out of the presentation? I know some of you are going to be signing off. Can you just let me know? I want to get over to the people on Facebook too. Mary just says helpful. Thank you. Lana says, enjoyed learning what channel makes me a manifesting generator. You're welcome. Katyun says, thank you. Artists often work in obsession. I know. I consider myself an artist also. All right, everybody, please just start putting in, what are your takeaways from today? What are the top 2 things that you learned? And I'm going to go over here to Facebook and say, oh, Arya came in late from Scotland. That's great. Good to see you. Trudy says, I learned which motors are more powerfully connected to the throat in a manifesting generator. I learned that manifesting generators are capable of multitasking. Yes, not just capable, but really they need to. And then also you mentioned the emotional wave. I have a 3955 channel, one on the design side and one on the personality side. Does that mean I have 2 waves and they cancel each other? No, it doesn't mean that. It means you have double. So I feel neutral most of the time. I do not seem to be very moody or emotional. And so when you say you have that channel, one on the design side and one on the personality side, so you have the same channel in personality and design. That's interesting. That I don't see that very often. Sometimes you see an individual gate, but not usually a channel that's double defined that way. No, it doesn't mean that. Yeah, and if you don't seem to be very moody or emotional, I guess one question I have for you is, were emotions welcome and honored in your family while you were growing up? Were you encouraged to be emotional? Were you encouraged to know what you were feeling? Because I've talked to lots of people who have suppressed their emotions and don't even know it. And they're emotionally defined. And so that's one thing you might want to take a look at for yourself. Okay. And Deirdre says, thanks, Maggie. Hi, Deirdre. Mira, my daughter, is a manifesting generator. Got advice on how to guide her through her frustrations. Oh, good. Good, good, good. All right. Sounds good. Anybody else? Let's see here. Yes. Paul says, my superpowers and what to pay attention to. Great. Mary Trujillo says, I feel happy by myself and I get tired talking with people. Okay. Well, maybe that's, I mean, that could have to do with your profile also. There's a variety of different things that might have to do with. And so Diane says, yes, I have done a webinar course. I have done a closet declutter webinar. My list is 320 subscribers. I'm working on integrating nutrition and styling as a confident body consultant. My passion is helping women to be their best self. I'm also an empath and introvert. Okay. You know, Mary, Diane, what you might want to do right now is focus on building your list and building your relationship with your people. You know, like these webinars I do, they're all free. Okay. And most of the people who come on are people who are already in my community on my list. But a lot of them I've never communicated with before, you know, and here they are in the Facebook group and here they are participating in these free webinars. And so I'm building my relationship with them. So that's something you might consider focusing on right now. Lorene says, my top takeaways are to pay attention to whether I am taking the right action and whether I feel engaged or frustrated. Excellent. And also to tune in to my sacral center for yes, no guidance. Oh, that's vital, 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 vital. And Lorena, if you're not familiar with your authority, your sacral authority, I highly encourage that you go watch the webinar that's about authority. And Mary Wilson says, takeaways, ask more question. What's really going on with me? Yeah. What do I want to do? There are hundreds of archetypes within human design. This has me curious. Yeah. It's amazing. It's a wonderful, beautiful system with all kinds of things for us to learn. All right. Many blessings, much love. It's great as always. Remember, no webinar next week, and then we'll be back for 3 weeks after that, doing projector, manifestor, and reflector, and then we'll be looking at the Sovereign Sister salons, which is an interview series. Okay, and Diane says, thank you. Human design is very new. My takeaway is a new experience to find out about me. Great. All right. Bye, everybody. See you in a couple weeks.